Welcome to This Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today. If you really look closely at the world around you, you'll notice one undeniable fact. Our world, and the ways we learn about it, are in a constant, massive state of unrelenting change. Whether we're talking about the environment, our global economy, or even the very tools we use to uncover the secrets of the universe, transformation is the rule. It's definitely not the exception. So today, we're going to explore Dr. Susan Edwards' fascinating insights into how we acknowledge and assess change, and then we'll really focus in on the dynamics of discovery.
Here is our roadmap for today's explainer. We'll start with a world in transformation, followed by the engine of discovery. Then we'll tackle big data and big questions, look at the physical universe and extending the human reach, and finally, we'll wrap the whole thing up with the future of inquiry. Let's get moving.
Okay, let's dive right into this first section, exploring the universal nature of change.
Assessing massive societal shifts, well, it isn't exactly a new phenomenon. When poet laureate Bob Dylan recorded these lyrics back in 1963, he wasn't just writing a catchy tune, right? He was deliberately acknowledging and assessing the incredibly rapid social transformations of the 1950s and 60s, and honestly, more than 55 years later, his poetry still rings incredibly true. We are still living in intensely interesting, changing times, which just goes to show that the concept of a rapidly transforming world is a truly timeless observation.
So, what do we actually mean when we throw the word transformation around? Simply put, it's the process of acknowledging, assessing, and achieving change across our social, economic, and natural systems. And the wild thing is, everything is deeply connected. For instance, photographer Joel Sartore spent 12 whole years traveling the globe. He photographed 7,000 rare animal species just to make us care about natural transformations before they go extinct. But those natural networks, they're tied directly to economic systems. Just look at how global agriculture shifts transform India's economy, where a massive 47% of their labor force is tied directly to the land.
But transformations don't just happen in nature. They happen incredibly fast in the corporate world, too. Think about this. In the year 2000, the United States had 10 major airlines. Today, through massive corporate consolidation, there are only 4. And those 4 corporations now control a whopping 83% of the entire market. And here is a number that brilliantly illustrates the real-world impact of that economic transformation: $4.2 billion. With that massive market consolidation came a ton of fees for travelers, for everything from your luggage to seats with just a tiny bit of extra legroom. To put that into perspective, back in 2007, airline fees generated about $543 million. By 2016, that number leaped to $4.2 billion. It's just a perfect example of how a structural transformation completely changes the everyday consumer experience. Which smoothly brings us to our next section, the engine of discovery. Now that we've grasped the sheer scale of these global and economic shifts, we really need to ask, how do we actually discover and track the changes happening all around us?
To understand our modern tools, we actually have to trace their origins. While Bob Dylan was documenting huge cultural shifts in 1963, the technological seed for our current digital revolution was actually planted quite a bit earlier. In 1948, Claude Shannon developed information theory. Without that foundational discovery, the massive rise of big data we saw in the 2000s simply might not exist. It just shows how the cultural and the technological are always moving forward on parallel tracks.
The crucial point here is summarized beautifully by author Frank Herbert. The fundamental human desire to discover new things, to shine a light on what we just don't understand, remains absolutely constant. But the engine we use to drive that discovery, well, that has completely and fundamentally changed.
And that brings us to our third section, big data, big questions. Let's look closely at the specific mechanisms of modern inquiry, fueled by our totally unprecedented access to information. Big data has entirely revolutionized research into human behavior. Successful businesses are no longer just guessing what we want. Netflix analyzes mountains of data to know exactly which movies you're going to enjoy. Amazon studies reading habits to recommend your next favorite book. And Next Big Sound? They use analytics to forecast who the next massive music artist will be before they even hit the radio. The whole fundamental process of inquiry for successful businesses has shifted away from simple human intuition directly over to predictive data analytics. But as you can probably guess, this engine of discovery creates a massive data dilemma across society. On one hand, you have a Wisconsin company called 3 Square Market literally embedding microchips in their employees for a seamless cashless payment system. Over in the medical field, experts like Yale's Harlan Krumholtz are pushing hard to share medical data across researchers to save lives faster, but doing so inherently increases the vulnerability for massive data breaches. And on a global scale, evidence shows hackers and bots utilize digital networks to interfere in the 2016 and 2017 elections in the US, France, and Germany. The really big takeaway here is that technology is transforming society much, much faster than we can work out the ethics of using and safeguarding all this data.
This brings us to a pretty profound realization. Having unprecedented access to massive amounts of data doesn't just change the answers we get. It fundamentally changes the very questions we are capable of asking. We're now probing into human behavior and societal trends in ways that were, quite literally, unimaginable half a century ago.
Let's pivot now from digital algorithms in big data over to the physical universe in our fourth section, extending the human reach.
Traditional exploration was always bottlenecked by human physical constraints and, of course, extreme danger. There are just some places a fragile human body cannot go. But modern technological exploration, using robotics, digital imaging, and remote sensors, allows us to bypass those human physical limits entirely to uncover the universe's deepest secrets.
For example, let's look back at August 2012. NASA's Curiosity exploration robot safely landed on the surface of Mars. Since that historic landing, Curiosity has acted as an amazing extension of human senses, allowing NASA scientists to make incredibly important discoveries that human explorers simply could not have made alone. Exploration robots have evolved into vital scientific instruments, completely changing how we study the universe.
And this technology isn't just for outer space either. It's transforming how we look at our own planet. Take Petra in Jordan, one of the most famous and heavily surveyed archaeological sites in the entire world. Even though explorers literally walked that site for centuries, modern archaeologists only recently discovered a massive ancient structure hidden right under their noses. How? By using a 3-step technological approach. First, analyzing the site on Google Earth, then utilizing high-resolution satellite imagery, and finally deploying drones for a much closer look. Modern tools unlocked a thousands of years old secret. Just incredible.
Which brings us to this really incredible thought. When we look at the Curiosity rover chilling on Mars or drones flying over Petra, we have to ask, does new research technology mean we can finally find the answers to questions that we once thought impossible? Well, the evidence strongly suggests the answer is yes. The tools we invent actively reshape our potential for understanding.
And that brings us to our final section, the future of inquiry. Let's pull all of these threads together.
If there is one core takeaway you get from this explainer, it is this. Unprecedented access to information fundamentally transforms how we learn. But with that awesome power comes a real challenge. Whether we're predicting consumer behavior, observing global economics, mapping the human genome, or exploring the dusty surface of Mars, we are urgently required to navigate the delicate balance between rapid, exciting discovery and our ethical responsibility to safeguard that information. I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. Where would we be in the realm of new discoveries if it were not for consistent changes in the research methods we use? Our tools shape our reality, and our methods shape our world. Keep exploring, keep questioning the tools you use, and I highly encourage you to dive deeper into this fascinating topic on your own. Thank you so much for joining me today.